All right, my name is Nick. I'm going to pitch you a snippet from a chase sequence that happens at the inciting incident of the film. So that's the very end of Act 1. And in this sequence, a group of thugs are chasing our kids through Chinatown. And in this part that we're going to see, they chase them into the subways. Our kids round a corner and run into the subway entrance. Just as the emergency door opens, they slam it shut and run down the escalator. The thugs are hot on their tail, but the door is locked. You've got to go the long way around. They run down the escalator just as the train comes in. We hear it pull in. Our kids run on board just as the doors close. They breathe a sigh of relief, but the doors open again, and when they look into the car opposite, there are the thugs, still after them. So they push through the crowd, and they open the door to the next car, where they are surprised to see a cop standing there. So the kids walk in slowly. They sort of plant themselves on opposite sides of the police officer. Vince opens the door, and whereas our kids think that they're safe, Vince can see that they're trapped. He looms over Jordan and he mouths the words, "You're dead." Jordan slumps in his chair and then kicks Vince in the balls. All of the kids run off of the train, followed by Vince and one of the thugs. They run down the platform. Ryan pushes ahead and down onto the tracks. "Guys, follow me. I know a way out." Malcolm he's like, "Ryan, what are you doing? Ryan, get back here." "Guys, you've got to trust me." Michaela is the first one to jump down, then Malcolm. Jordan is the most reluctant, but he takes a breath, runs after them, and they head into the subway.
Now, how would you say that storyboarding in this particular case helps the writing process?
Well, storyboarding is interesting because when you're forced to think in terms of cinematics, you have to be really specific about the character relationships, what they're doing, what they want, how things pace out. And so the storyboarding process, then it becomes like a way of helping you make decisions. And like being more specific about things that maybe you were sort of vague about before.
And is that a thing, when you're writing, is that a thing that is lost in the writing, or is it a thing that is sort of amped when you're boarding?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything that's lost in the writing. If anything, storyboarding just gives you another tool to mine the material that you already have there. When you're sitting with a scene and you have to draw it, you have to be very deliberate about everything that's happening. And so, you know, if you're drawing kids going onto a subway train, for example, you start to wonder, well, what happens on the train? How do people react? What are things that they see? Which door do they go through? And so all of a sudden, a very simple action or a very simple setting, it becomes the staging ground for a lot of ideas. And so one of the great benefits of storyboarding is that new ideas emerge.
And what would be an example of a new idea that you what was a new idea that was birthed as a result of storyboarding in this particular case?
In this particular case, you know, we had the benefit of boarding a sequence that actually took place in New York. And so one of the cool things about storyboarding this sequence was going to the station where this scene is set, and actually like looking for those camera angles, looking for the way that you would shoot it. So for example, this setup where the kids run down the escalator, and then these kids are forced to go the long way around. That is just like that's a really convenient. That's got a really convenient, interesting way of setting up tension in the chase that kind of came for free through this setting.
And that's a real station, right?
This is a real station.
Which station is it?
This is East Broadway.
Nice.
This is East Broadway. I had to chase a lot of kids to get this this sequence right. Or even, you know, the idea that the kids would run onto a train and that something should happen on that train. That was an opportunity for new ideas to come from. And that's where we got the idea of them running on and seeing the cop, which is the thing that happens in the New York City subway.
Cool. And then having built this sequence, what are the next steps?
So the next steps with the sequence like this, and again, this is a snippet. So there are actually other parts of this chase sequence that are in various states of finish. There's some that are very rough. There's some that you can click through, but the drawings aren't as clear. But the idea would be to take everything to this level and then to edit it into a reel that you could just play. So
that would include music and scratch dialogue.
And sound effects,
yeah.
That's right. So when a person is pitching a sequence, the idea is that pitch itself is filling in for all of the pacing, all of the feeling that you would get if you were watching an actual movie. But the nice thing about having boards that are this finished is that you can cut them together and get a real sense of what this would be like if you could film it.
And so having taken a pass at this segment of the sequence, as you've gone through it multiple times, what are some specific things that you would change about this specific sequence? Like what are some things that you see that you're like, oh, I want to change this? I think mostly what I would want to do is find opportunities to infuse the sequence with more character, which I think that's always a danger when you're boarding an action scene, that the scene is just overwhelmed with activity, but that you're not actually like advancing the drama in any way. And so that was one of the reasons why we came up with moments like this, where the pacing is like pretty fast, and then all of a sudden it stops, and we have this like moment of exchange. I would want to see that happen again in this exchange at the end. Yeah.
I think it's pretty close, but I would want to amplify it a bit more. So you can see the way that it's set up. Jordan, Ryan's brother, he's the one who's the most reluctant to follow. So one thing that I would do, this is my long-winded preamble. One thing that I would do is find a way to build around this moment. The other thing that I would do, and it's more of a
well, also in that moment he doesn't have a choice, right? Like there's bad guys right behind him. That's right.
Yeah. That's right. I think another thing I might do is try to give the bad guys a little more screen time, because I do think you'll lose them a bit at the end here. And I would say the last thing that I'm concerned about is the start-stoppingness of it. Which it happens a few times. So on the one hand, I was saying how great that they stop on the subway car to have this exchange, but that also means that the pacing like drops off. Same thing at the end here. They stop at the end of the tunnel to have this exchange, but again, the pacing just drops off. So it's one thing to have slows, it's another thing to have it just like all of the action like completely arrested because we're going to talk. So, you know, is there a way to be more efficient about that? Probably. So I would look at things like that. But I also think it'll be more helpful to get the rest of the sequence in so that you can see where you actually want to put that emphasis.